exactly what is he?
It's still a mystery as to why it took them. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Primetime Crime. I'm your host, Lauren Conlin, and with me, as always, is my favorite prosecutor, Jarrett Ferrantino. Hey, Jarrett.
Retired prosecutor. Hey, Lauren, how are you?
Whatever. Details. You're still my favorite prosecutor, okay?
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes, and speaking of my favorites, tonight, guys, I'm so excited because we have my favorite crime scene investigator and podcast host, Sheryl McCollum. You all know her and you all love her. And if you don't know her, you're going to love her. And I have to tell you, she is a hot commodity right now. I mean, she is, I'm really excited that she agreed to do this. Okay. She's going to kill me for that. But no, let me tell you a bit about Sheryl. She is the host of the incredible podcast Zone 7. She's a crime scene analyst. She is a college professor. She's written a textbook, and she's the founder and the director of the Cold Case Investigative Research Institute in Atlanta, Georgia. And Sheryl has helped me tremendously on cases and just in life, I would say. She's just that kind of person. She's very giving. She will always give you more than she has, which is really incredible. You don't find people like that. And actually, she's kind of the reason Jarrett and I met. So we'll get into that.
She's more than kind of. But
Well,
Sheryl combines like Southern hospitality and Southern justice. It's like the perfect combination.
I know.
Right. We met. We'll talk about how we met. Sheryl and I met and how you and Sheryl met. But the reason you and I met is because we were both on the Nancy Grace show, and Sheryl is the one who hooked me up with Nancy Grace. So
yeah, and Sheryl secretly did the same for me, but never told me. So
how about that?
But I want to just preface right now that Sheryl solved a cold case, and what Sheryl did for this family is something that, it's hard to even put into words. So we're going to be talking about that. And we're also going to be talking about Tupac and Diddy. And Sheryl did this interview with Laura Ingle on News Nation on Saturday. I watched it. My jaw was on the floor because there was so much I didn't know about Sheryl. And I was like, Sheryl, you need to update your Wikipedia page or your bio with some of this stuff. And she's like, okay, a little mystery is good. Okay. And I'm like, all right, fine. But anyway, let's bring in Sheryl, and I'll stop rambling. There she is.
Hey, Sheryl.
How are y'all doing?
Better now.
And what an intro. I tell y'all, keep the bar low, people. Don't get too excited.
No, I think that there's a reason for everybody to be excited. But Sheryl, let's start with, I guess, how we all met, because that's fun before we get into some of the nitty gritty stuff. I mean, I actually reached out to you blindly on Twitter. Do you remember that? I was like, wow, she's fascinating. I wonder if she'd come on my show.
Sure.
Yeah.
Listen, it was a two-way street. I mean, I just loved what you were about, your whole vibe, the way you just approach everything. Anybody that can be in this business for more than 5 minutes and be happy and vivacious and caring, I want to be with that person. Aww. So it was great to connect with you because, so many people, they burn out. They're not happy. They're a little gruff. So it's good. All good.
Well, I'll be honest, I haven't been doing this for that long. I mean, a few years. I've got a few years under my belt, but
long enough to be jaded, I think, right? It doesn't take too long.
Right? Okay.
It don't.
All right. I feel good about that. And then Jarrett, tell the story about how you guys met, because I kind of love that story.
Sheryl tells it better than I do. But
okay, Sheryl.
Sheryl, you tell the story.
We both were working on the same cold case. And so there was going to be a big press conference because the FBI had finally made an arrest. And the mama, Dawn, she told me, she said, I've got this attorney now. He's helping me. It's a different world. Because I had been telling her for a long time, you need somebody that can fight for you, that when they give you these ridiculous theories or tell you this can't happen, or you can't go after this kind of information that can get it done. Well, honey, when I at that hotel, it was Steph Watts, who I've known for a long, long time, Dawn, who I've known for a long, long time, and there sits this man poolside in a slick town suit, pinstripe, with a cigar, hair perfect, tan. And I'm like, I don't know who that is.
We're gonna have you on every week, Cheryl. That's
He's probably a lawyer, though.
Oh, you're
well, let me say, so that was the Brittany Drexel case out of South Carolina. I had the honor of representing Brittany's mom, Dawn, who fought for years for answers in a case very similar to what we're going to be talking about tonight. And Cheryl, you breathe rarefied air in that cold case world. You were one of the few that gave Dawn Drexel faith and was someone that didn't feed her BS. You were someone that was real with her. You know, you bring to the table that all that experience, and I think people and an immediate credibility and a genuineness that is rare in the business. You know, everybody wants to sell themselves and that, and she had been so just torn up over her search for Brittany and all of the theories and the horrible things she had heard. She was looking for answers, and you were always someone who supported her. And I knew if Dawn thought so highly of someone, this was a special person. And I had the pleasure of meeting you, your husband, and your family, and it was just a highlight of the trip.
Walt,
one of the many trips.
Well,
wait, Walt should make an appearance, and I know he'll literally kill me. I hope you're like, yeah. No, Jarrett, Walt was, Cheryl and I had dinner, and Walt was such a good sport. I mean, he took a few trips to go watch the game, probably too many trips, because he needed to get away from the murder talk and the girl talk, but he's such a good guy. Totally agree. Ooh, so I almost just fell. If you guys can't tell, I'm in a different location. I have no internet, so I'm at a gym and I'm sitting on yoga blocks. So if I do fall, I'm very sorry. But
all right, be careful.
I will. Thank you so much. I have a lawyer handy just in case. So I want to talk about Melissa. Now, this case, she was a 21-year-old married mother of two, and she had been missing for 4 years before her remains were identified. Is that correct? Yes. Okay. But decades passed and her killer remained a mystery until now. And I first heard about this case from Cheryl at the Hamptons Whodunit. I was going to say, do you remember? But it was the wine and crime event. And it was so cool because Cheryl was like, okay, guys, we're going to go over this cold case, but you can't talk about it. You can't post about it because it's literally active. And now what Cheryl was able to do through her podcast, through her investigative skills, I mean, I'm going to let her talk, but she literally wrote Melissa's father, who is a serial killer in prison. I mean, it's amazing to get these clues. So Cheryl, can you just take us through, and I'm sorry, you've told the story a lot lately, but yeah, if you could just take us through how you found this case and how, you know, Melissa's mother kind of fell into your lap here, and then what happened, that would be great.
I was doing an event. I was literally giving a speech on a stage. And as I'm looking out at the audience, it's kind of a high class event. So everybody's, you know, pretty well dressed up. And out of my peripheral vision, I see this woman come in and I watch her walk. She's got on like Bermuda shorts, a tank top looking shirt, and a straw hat. Like she doesn't fit, but she's holding an 8x10 frame. So I know it's a mama of somebody that's either been missing or murdered. So when I got done, I walked toward her. She comes right up to me. She turns the frame around and she said, "This is my daughter, Melissa. She was beheaded in Atlanta. Will you help?" Well, I mean, there's no way you can say no, right? Yeah. So I said, well, this probably isn't the best environment. I really need to be able to sit and listen to what your story is. Can you meet me at my office at the college next week? She said, yes. So we set a date and time for her to come. She does. And this is where I had probably one of the most unusual conversations I've ever had with anybody. She in this gigantic case file in several binders. And she puts the binders on the table and she put her hand on each one and she said, I know you said you would help me, but there's something I have to tell you first. I said, okay. She said, my husband is in prison for murder and I helped him.
Wow.
Ooh.
Okay. Well, so I usually in my world go to humor in situations where I'm not really comfortable. So I said, well, just remind me not to make you mad. So she laughed and she said, well, let me tell you about it. So she started telling me about the situation, told me that it was in the 70s, told me about some of the victims, told me, where their bodies were disposed of. And I said, wait a minute. Are you telling me your husband is the Flint River killer? And she said, yes. And I said, you're telling me your daughter years later was a victim of homicide herself? She said, yes. And I was like, okay, well, I'm somebody that has studied crime since I was a kid. I mean, I've read about every criminal you could possibly imagine. I am a criminologist. I mean, I've got a master's degree. I have never, ever heard of a serial killer turned crime victim who turned to law enforcement for help, who turned to a nonprofit for help. So this is how she got to me. A high school friend knew her daughter, Tina. And she said, listen, I got a buddy from high school. If anybody can help you, she can help you. I know she'll at least listen to your story. Told her about the event and she came to the event. And that's how we met, because of Donna Jones from my high school.
Wow.
Wow.
Wow, Donna. A little heads up, by the way. I mean,
Before we even get into what happened, the fact that you've been doing this a long time when you didn't write her off when she told you she was involved in those things. I think when you're around this business long enough, you start to see people beyond the worst thing they've ever done. And I think the fact that you gave her a chance in that moment and were willing to listen to her story is pretty incredible. I think that a lot of people would have written her off at that point, either said, well, I know what happened here, you guys were involved in it, or didn't think enough of them that they were worthy of help. And I think that speaks volumes to your character.
People tell me it was karma. And I said, well, I don't know what you believe, and that's fine, But to me, Melissa did not deserve what happened.
Right.
Yeah.
And
it wasn't the killer.
Right. And I mean, there's reasons people do what they do. And Carl Patton had his reasons. He thought he was in the right. And the first person that he decided he was going to kill almost beat his aunt to death. So in his world, he was justified. Now, I want to be very clear. Carl Patton is where he needs to be. Carl knows how I feel. The family knows how I feel. I have never drifted from that. But I will also tell you, not just being Southern, because I think there's a whole lot of people in New Jersey and Philly and New York that would subscribe to the same thing. If you come for my family in any way, you're going to see a different side of me. So there is something about Carl I understand. Doesn't make it right. I'm just telling you I understand it. And there's a whole lot of men that I have heard say, if anybody touches anybody in my family, I'll kill them.
I'm one of those guys. Just so you know.
I mean, I'm just letting you know. There should be no comment about it. And
yeah.
know that before they come to your driveway. That's the way I see it. So I'm not saying what he, did was okay. I'm not saying it was in any way justified. It wasn't. What I'm saying is, to him, the first murder in his mind, that's how he saw it. And I'm just telling you, I know people that feel that same way. So one thing that was important for me to do is not just be in contact with Carl, but also reach out to the victim's family. So the children of Lydia Evans, it was important for me to talk to them. Number one, I don't want anybody to misunderstand who I'm helping or why I'm helping them.
Right.
Is I needed to hear from them about their mama. The overall victimology is always important. So Carl will tell you, for example, he's not a serial killer. That is a definition that law enforcement has come up with, that if you kill more than 2 people, you're a serial killer. But to him, he's like, that's not true. So, for example, a mafia hitman is not a serial killer. He's not hunting victims that have a similar shape, hair color, doing, whatever they're doing for him to lock in on you. He's not a Ted Bundy. He thinks he only killed people that deserved it. So, unfortunately, the women, I believe, were collateral damage because they were associated with these men that were going to know who committed the murders. So Carl felt like, he had to kill them as well.
Yeah. I it's interesting how people's brains work. It's kind of just like, oh, that's sweet, but you're a serial killer. Just saying. But no, Cheryl, go ahead.
What's so funny? Just saying.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, people ask me all the time, you deal with such horrible, tragic, cases and events. How do you stay positive? Well, I'll give you one. When I dealt with Lydia Evans' children, and she had 5 of them, and I spoke to them at different times, each one of them, without fail, said what happened to Melissa was not okay, and that they prayed for justice for her. Now, they were very clear. Carl needs to stay where he's at in prison. But they were able, just because of their heart, they could separate these 2 cases. So how in the world could I not?
Yeah.
And I think that you have to sometimes in the business too, Cheryl, go to these darkest places to find the brightest light, right? I mean,
Yep.
it's amazing. You descend into the chaos and the madness of these worlds, the victims that are left behind. You're talking to Carl, somebody who was capable of meting out, in his mind, his own brand of justice, in the eyes of the law, serial murder. And in this chaos, you're going to help people that need your help. I mean, it's, I've been there. I've been there, not that particular case, but I think people are often surprised by the positive stories that come out of just the darkness. And that's the part of the business that kept me going and keeps me in it this way too. But really is that finding hope in hopelessness.
Yeah. And it's funny because there's, over these many years communicating with Carl, I can only do it through letters. And that's like, an old world kind of way of talking to somebody. So in some ways we get to know each other pretty good. You've got to think of the questions and you've got to wait for a response and all that. But Carl is funny. I mean, he said a few things that I was like, oh my God, that's the funniest thing I've ever heard. So for example, he asked all the time, when did Norma divorce him? And I'm like, they're not divorced. They're married today.
Wow.
You missed the loyalty. She helped him dispose of the bodies. Now, she didn't murder anybody, but again, she helped him get rid of the bodies and throw them in the river. So I asked him, if a killer is ever caught and prosecuted, do you want that person to be sent to your prison? He writes me back and he goes, I got your letter regarding if I want the killer sent to my prison. I promised Norma I wouldn't kill nobody else.
Oh, okay. I mean, that's promising. Sure. Okay.
But again, him giving Norma his word is everything. For the last 25 years, that woman every Sunday drives 3 hours, visits with him 3 hours, and drives 3 hours home. It's unbelievable.
Wow. I mean, she's a committed woman, clearly.
Yeah.
And now something that I left out that you filled in, I left out the fact that Melissa, a 21-year-old mother, was beheaded.
Yes.
So Cheryl, her head was found at a different place in a different time than the rest of her body. Is that correct?
Sort of. So
Okay.
it was April 1999, the 29th, and a UPS driver was driving down the street, and there was a trash bag that had been torn apart, and there was a skull literally sitting in the middle of Avon Avenue.
Whew.
When they sent it for testing, it came back as a Caucasian male. Now, Melissa's been missing since Thanksgiving 1998. So her mama is watching TV and she's relieved that it's not Melissa. Well, then June the 3rd, 4 months later, 4 more trash bags were found with her arms and legs. No torso, and the torso has never been found.
To this day.
To this day. So it was originally identified as a Caucasian male. There was another county in South Georgia that had a body with no head, and they said, hey, this might be your guy. So APD drives the skull down there. The skull had a very clean, like a saw. The body down in the ravine in South Georgia was jagged, like somebody worked to get that head off. So it wasn't.
What goes on in Georgia? Oh, we have a body without a head. Let's like what? Sorry, is that a normal thing? I'm maybe I don't know enough of these statistics.
More normal than you think, unfortunately.
I mean,
right?
I'm sorry, I'm horrified.
Yeah, it does happen, but beheadings are rare. I mean, they really are. You're not going to work 15 in your career if you stay 40 years, but it happened.
Yeah.
And it's somebody close to the victim. So what happened, it just went unsolved.
Yeah.
So for 4 years, nobody mentions a Caucasian male missing, nobody transient, nobody in other jurisdictions calls. So the box is unidentified. The remains are all put together, and that's it. Well, Melissa's never seen. Her mama keeps trying to report her as missing, but law enforcement keeps telling them she's grown. She's married. She can get ghost if she wants to.
Mm-hmm.
And the other places that she begged, like her town, that wasn't even their jurisdiction. So they're not going to take a report. Well, finally, there was an officer in her hometown that said, okay, I will at least do a report so that you have a paper trail, but we're not going to investigate. There's nothing to investigate. So Norma, at this point, she and Carl are searching for her everywhere. Tina hadn't seen her, the sister. She hadn't been at work. She was on probation. She hasn't reported to probation. She had a court date coming up where she and her husband had been in a fight and he was charged with battery. She didn't show up for that. Nobody's seen her. They go to the house. The house is completely moved out. Like there's not a thing in the house. And the neighbors have said, well, yeah, they moved out a long time ago. So panic sets in for Norma. Carl for a while thought, well, maybe they're just, moved here or, skipped out on rent because they were, having difficulty financially. But no, I mean, she was gone. So Carl gets arrested for the murders that he committed in the 70s. When he gets placed in prison, he calls through Norma, the detective that arrested him. And he said, you caught me after 25 years. Will you please look for my daughter?
Mm-hmm.
To his credit, he did. And so what he did, he went and looked at where the skull was found. And Avon Avenue, there's a manhole cover right in the middle of this little 2-lane street. It's a real narrow street. And he sees Action Glass. Well, Action Glass is where her husband worked. Now, here's the reason Norma and them didn't put 2 and 2 together. Off of 285 on the other side of Atlanta is also an Avon Avenue. Well, she knew that had no connection to Melissa. She didn't realize it was this Avon Avenue.
Mm.
So then he goes back and says, hey.
So Cheryl, prior to that, let's talk about Melissa's husband, Chris, without any spoilers, right? They moved out. He had a pending battery case. Mm-hmm. Melissa misses Thanksgiving, Christmas, years go by. Yep. She's unheard from. So question number 1, was law enforcement hesitant to open a missing persons because of her connection to Carl? Do you think?
Some people believe that.
Okay.
I think they thought they had a Caucasian male.
Well,
And-
but even the fact that she was missing, I mean, she fell
Right.
off the face of the earth.
Right. But these are two people that tended to move around a lot.
Okay.
And they rarely had a car. They rarely had any way to get to a phone. So she would go months without contacting her family sometimes anyway. Sometimes he would go to jail. Sometimes she went to jail. I mean, they had a volatile relationship, but it wasn't like they lived in the same town. I mean, it was just one of those situations. It was the perfect storm for her.
And I get that. Was law enforcement at any point, did they talk to Chris, Melissa's husband at that point, prior to the Avon Avenue connection to the business?
No,
Okay.
not her probation officer. Nobody at the solicitor's office when she missed court even went and did a welfare. Nobody called her. And see, what's funny, in the years before that, Chris would sometimes even tell them, hey, she didn't call in on time, or she's violating probation this way. He didn't do it this time. So he told people that he thought she left to go start a new life in California. Now, let me be clear. Left her 2 children behind who are 1 and 2. She had no money, no cell phone, didn't take any clothes, didn't take anything that meant anything to her, like photographs or jewelry, nothing. Nothing about his story made any sense. She wouldn't have had enough money to get to Villa Rica, much less.
Right.
So his story from Jump Street was concerning. And he's also the person, he didn't want to raise them. He gave the children to his mother to raise. So there was flag after flag after flag that something is not right. And here's the worst part for me. When he did realize she wasn't in California, she didn't leave you, she didn't abandon her children that you told them. She was actually murdered, and she was murdered in such a horrific way. She was chopped up and put in trash bags. At that point, he didn't go to the police and go, oh my God, okay, let me tell you all the people we ever had trouble with. He didn't. He never worked with them at all. So there were things, if you look at pre and post behavior, which, Jared, when you're building that case, you want to look at that. And if you look at it, he violated everything he had done before.
Right. He touched every base. So.
And guys, sorry, I literally forgot about the chat. So you saw me just pinning some comments. I've just been like so fascinated, and so, it's crazy. I literally forgot we had a chat and we had people watching and chatting. So you have a lot of fans in here, Mac. A lot of fans that are saying they are fangirling out over you. So, and yes, Taryn, we all love Zone 7. So anyway, and Sal, just to clarify, Norma, the mother, did not help him kill. She helped him dispose of the bodies.
Right.
Sorry.
Which
so,
again, yeah, that's enough.
Yeah.
But he made a deal. So she turned state's evidence. She testified against him. Carl said, look, there's no reason for trial. I'll admit it. So Carl admitted what he did in DeKalb County. Yeah. I mean, he just walked in and said, yeah, this is what I did in Clayton County, DeKalb County, Fayette County. And he admitted to it.
Wow.
Again, I'm not bragging on him. I'm just saying if more people would do that, it helps the families. It helps everybody.
You make me laugh so hard because it's like, I feel like we're in this world where if we do, I don't know how to say it either. Like, I don't know how to say certain things without sounding crazy or without sounding like I'm patting a serial killer or a rapist on the back when they actually admit to something or say, okay, I did it. So it is kind of interesting that you have to, I'm not bragging on him, but he did do the right thing at this point in time.
Hey, let me tell y'all something. I told Norma, people lie to me every day.
Yeah.
When Norma said what she said to me, I'm like, well, I'm going to glass half full this thing and we'll go with the honesty, which again, I appreciate. She didn't have to tell me that. I don't know how long it would be before I realized there was a connection with Carl Patton.
But sometimes that makes somebody even more truthful. We were talking about that yesterday. One of the witnesses in the Kansas mom's case was one of the killers, and it's like if they get on the stand or they come to you and they tell you the horrible things they've done, this is someone who's not hiding much at that point.
Right.
They're they say when you get in bed with the government, get totally naked, right? They're just coming clean, right? And that's what they're doing.
Yeah,
Get totally naked.
Well, you gotta be real, gotta be open and tell your whole story, right?
Yeah, that's a good point, actually.
Wearing blue jeans, you're not in the bed for the right reason. He's absolutely right. You got to get naked to get something done. Period.
So sorry. I love the way my mom is from the South too. So she also says naked instead of naked, and it always makes me laugh. It's really funny. I love it. So, okay. So action glass. Norma didn't put that together, Sheryl. And then all of a sudden things are starting to piece together, if you will.
So Bruce Jordan says, we've got to do dental records, DNA. Let's make sure we know who this is. And of course it comes back Melissa Wolfenbarger. No question about it. And here's the other thing. And I want to make this clear, just anybody listening to me, so they don't misunderstand anything I'm saying. And I think Jared will back me up. In my world, I don't get to pick and choose who I work with or for. When 911 calls, we go. Doesn't matter to me. Oh, it was a drug dealer shot or a third grade teacher. I'm going to work the hell out of both things equally, period. Because here's the thing at the end of the day, when people come to me and say, well, I can't believe you spent all this time on a serial killer's daughter. There's a killer out there, y'all, that took a 21-year-old mama and chopped her up, put her in trash bags, and threw her in a junkyard.
So
now,
true.
I don't want that person pumping gasoline next to my son. I don't want that person as a waiter when my daughter is on a date at a restaurant. I don't want that person sitting behind me at a movie theater. And you shouldn't either.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who the killer is. Justice should be served. Just like I will tell you, Carl is where he needs to be.
Well, two things could be true at once, right? I mean, and I always say, like, it's like a fireman saying, I'll respond to the call, but whose house is it, right? Whose house is on fire? We don't ask that question.
We don't ask.
Got to put the fire out.
That's right.
Yeah, I guess I can't believe people said that to you, Sheryl. I mean, I can believe it, but I'm having a hard time that people's minds go there because her dad was a serial killer. She doesn't deserve justice. We can't help who our family is, right? We are born into our family. That's our family. So I guess I'm not surprised that people are so ignorant, but
know how they're coming at me. And that's a place of love. So I can't agree at that either. They are so upset for these true victims that did not.
Oh, no. Right when we were getting to, the pinnacle. Hopefully she will be back in a second.
She'll get back. But I think one thing worth noting, just to follow up on what she said, I think what Sheryl's saying is people were trying to be protective of her. They were saying, like, your efforts are being wasted on somebody who doesn't deserve it.
Right.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes.
You're back.
Perfect. And Sheryl, really quick.
I don't know what's wrong.
We have a new, no, you're perfect. This is a great shot. We have a new listener watcher. Kevin just wanted to know if you could give one, and this is, I just don't want to forget about this at the end, but just one piece of advice to aspiring crime scene investigators. And so she didn't like that question, I guess. So she left. Kevin, look what you did. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Oh,
So but
you guys don't follow Sheryl. Her insight on every single case is truly fantastic. So I think you should go and download Zone 7 if you haven't already, because it's amazing. Here she is.
Right now?
Yeah, we could hear you before. You were good.
I'm so sorry. I could not hear a word. I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine. But yeah, just one piece of advice for aspiring crime scene investigators, and then we'll get back to Melissa.
A piece of advice?
Yeah.
Love it.
What's going on with our show? Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, no, you're good. Jared just dropped off, but yeah.
I mean, you got to love it. I mean, my best advice is no matter what you choose to do, whether it's a detective or prosecutor or crime scene investigator or court reporter, just love it, because we need you. I mean, I'm not going to do this forever. So I would really love to pass it off to somebody who's just going to be extraordinary,
Yeah.
but I have to love it because you're going to be away from your family. You're going to see people in just horrific situations. But if you really, can throw yourself into it, and when you hear sirens, it just grooves you, then do
Yeah.
it.
No, and I think, and I'm obviously not in Cheryl's world, but for me, listening to Sheryl and listening to podcasts, and Sheryl has incredible guests. And I've said your insight on every single case, I learn so much. I mean, I feel like I'm constantly taking notes during your podcast because, and even just, hits that you did on News Nation, and we'll get there, you guys, because it's just really incredible. And so nobody asked for my advice, but my advice is to listen to everything and follow people like Sheryl and take
Yeah.
notes,
Yeah.
retain it, and then go do it. But Jarrett will come back on at some point. And yes, I know Sheryl is the best. And Sal, my lovely friend Sal, always the conspiracy theorist, Russians interfering with the podcast. But no, let's get to Melissa and how this was able to be solved after 25 years. And guys, this is recent.
It's recent. It was August the 6th. That's how recent. And we worked with the DA's office. Even before the DA took office, I was able to meet with her, to her credit. She said, look, tell me what you think. And I said, well, I think there's 5 cases right now. You can solve them. 5. Told her what they were, told her how I thought she could solve them. And, 2 got solved pretty quick. And, it's one of those things where if the right people are put on it, which put some incredible ADAs on it, she put some incredible investigators, and then Atlanta did the heavy lifting. I mean, they've got lead detective, Detective Shepard. Oh, man. There's not enough accolades I could say about him.
Wow.
And he is also one of those people, very respectful, toward the Pattons. They are parents that lost a child to murder, period. And the detective that started this case, Detective Calhoun, let me just tell y'all about him if you just need a feel-good story. So Detective Calhoun started working the case, and I think he immediately knew this seems like a domestic, possibly. And Carl, he thought when Melissa was identified that Carl was quite possibly going to see it on the news. So he got in his car and he drove 3 hours so that he could tell that man in person that your daughter has been murdered. Now, full circle moment, August 6th rolls around. Now we find out August 5th before it's released to the media. Detective Calhoun, he's been retired 20 years, but this is still a case that's important to him. His relationship with Carl Patton is important to him. And he told me, Sheryl, father to father, he deserved that.
Yeah, totally.
The press conference was going to happen the next morning. But again, Carl would find out around lunchtime on the 6th, if not later.
Okay.
So Detective Calhoun knew he couldn't get there fast enough. But he called the warden and said, you've got to go tell him there's been an arrest so that he knows it before it makes the news. Now, those are the people that I get to work with every day. So again, when people say, Mac, how do you not burn out? How in the world could I burn out? I am literally surrounded by heroes every day. It's a fact. I'm not Pollyanna. I don't think the world is all, rainbows and Skittles. I know horrible things happen. I see it. But like I tell my own children, like you look at 9/11, 9 people did that. I know for a fact in New York City alone, 1 million people showed up to give blood.
Yeah.
1 million. when you start looking at all the first responders that came from everywhere, it's incredible. So yeah, some bad people did something, but more people are going to show up and do the right thing. And when you look at Melissa's case, we had people like you at the Who Done It. You gave your 2 cents. You helped. So did Barbara Butcher.
Yeah.
So did Lisa Rabakoff Mooney.
Yep.
So Joe Scott Morgan. I mean, you had person after person after person say, "Hey, what can I do to help?" Nancy Grace helped.
Yeah.
I mean, people. Ashley Wilcox from Court TV. Like, people don't know it. Like you said earlier, why is this not on your Wikipedia? What we do, you know, it's for the accolades or the rewards or, you know, anything like that. We do it because it's the right thing to do.
I mean, you're gonna make me cry. I swear. I'm such a baby about everything, but you really, oh God, you're so amazing like that. And it really, I think that more people need to hear that, because we're in this time now where it feels like people do things, and the clicks, the views, you're exploiting trauma. That's what people, so, and that's one of the reasons I think why I put off doing YouTube for so long. I was just, hiding behind my microphone, trying to just keep a low profile. But I mean, YouTube is where it's at, let's be honest. But anyway, so what was the key piece of evidence here in the arrest of, and we haven't really announced who was arrested.
Okay.
Most people might know, but yes.
I think we'll hold off on that because we are going to be going to trial soon. But I will tell you.
Okay. Got it.
I preach that the media is one of the best tools on a cold case you could possibly have.
Yes.
Period. Get the word out. So I waited about a year, really before I even did Melissa's case, because I thought, is that something I should be doing? Because I'm pretty close to it. And then I was like, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and do it. Her mama wanted to do it. Her sister wanted to do it. Detective Calhoun thought it was important. So we did a 9-part series. There was a woman that contacted me and said, "Are you still working on Melissa Wolfenbarger?" And I was like, yes. And she said, "Well, I might know something." And so I called her immediately. She did know something, and it was a similar pattern to what we had in court documents. I called Shepard immediately, and he's like, "I'm going to call her." So he calls her. And so to me, here's the great thing. I mean, I love doing the podcast.
Yeah.
But that's not my main gig. I mean, I'm a crime scene investigator.
Yeah.
I'm a person. I mean, I try to tell these stories to try to get information out there, to try to get people to help, which I do know for a fact is important, but never dreaming somebody would actually contact us on this case. So that was one of those things. I'm like, okay, dadgummit, I'm going to keep putting things out because it worked. I mean, I called, and, again, to his credit, Shepard was all over it immediately.
Right.
He interviewing different people, and he put together a case that I think when the time is right and we can talk about it, is going to blow your mind.
Oh, wow. So and I'm sorry for asking questions that
maybe that's your job. Ask.
Okay, but so there is an upcoming trial here, so that will all come out in the trial.
So Melissa's husband, Christopher Wolfenbarger, was arrested.
Yes, but we don't know. Well, the public doesn't know what was the nail in the coffin to make this arrest. Okay,
we're just going to maintain the integrity, but I'm just telling you, it's some of the best police work that I've heard of in a lot. You're going to, when we can come back and really talk about it. I will say
that's exciting. And Sal, you asked, do cold cases have a statute of limitations, or does it depend on the crime? I mean, it depends on the state and the crime.
So murder cases Sal, that's a great question. Murder cases tend not to have a statute of limitations because they could have such a long shelf life like this. So, and the law says murder is so egregious that they're not going to put a time limit on the ability to prosecute.
Yeah. So
Nancy Grace used to say, we're not going to reward them for being good at murder.
That's true.
Wow, that's powerful. Oh my gosh. And it's so amazing what you said about getting tips from a podcast. And I started my crime career investigating a case out of Tennessee, which is how I tapped Sheryl. And Sheryl, I'll tell you what, I still get emails from people who think they know something, they have ideas, and one tip was pretty credible and led us to something that we thought was going to break it wide open. And unfortunately it didn't, but
Unique.
you're
So
right.
don't you think, and Lauren, don't you think, and again, this is a credit to finding a way to marry these two worlds, where it's the media, for lack of a better word, and actual prosecutors, because one thing is some witnesses are hesitant to talk to the police. They love nothing more than to talk to someone they think is not a threat. So they'll come and call a podcaster or someone who's focusing on a particular story. One thing defendants hate, and I can tell you about the Drexel case, Sheryl, Raymond Moody used to go crazy because of the amount of attention Brittany's case had been continued to get over the years. In fact, at one point he told Angel, his now charged co-conspirator girlfriend, he would say to her, I wish she would just go away about Dawn. And I think the pressure, the attention you brought to Melissa's case through your podcast brought to bear a lot of, and it weighs on people. If you know something, they feel like the press is still all over this thing. It's still current. And people in that world are going to talk about your show and put pressure on these people.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me tell you, when the police showed up to make the arrest, he had some cameras, so I think he knew why they were pulling down the driveway, right? And this is online. You can look at it. It's been put out there in the universe. Mm-hmm. He's hiding behind a dryer, thinking they'll never see him. Now, again, in my world, innocent people don't do that.
Right.
And the second is, again, you know they're coming. And the reason you know they're coming is because Norma has not gone away. Tina has not gone away. Even incarcerated, Carl hadn't gone away. So,
yeah. Well, we will wait to see the updates on Melissa's case, and we will follow you for those. And everybody in the chat should follow her as well if you don't already. But I want to get to Tupac and Diddy, because you gave this incredible interview. I think, what was it, Friday night? Yes, it was last Friday. And it made the rounds. And what you said, and guys, this is what I'm talking about. When I listen to Sheryl, I'm like, damn, that's a really good point. Number one, I had no idea that you worked, Jared, I had no idea that you worked for Tupac's mother directly. I mean, I have so many questions. And number three here, you made such a good point. When Tupac got shot, both times he was enclosed in something. The first time in New York City, an elevator, and then in Vegas, a car. So, sorry, the trial junkies, like, Lauren's so happy right now. I know, I love talking about Diddy and Tupac. I do. I'm crazy. I'm like, So Sheryl, please, how did you get connected with Tupac's mother?
In Atlanta, in DeKalb County, she set up the Tupac Shakur Center. So she was in and out of Atlanta all the time. And her assistant came by the college and wanted to meet and said she wants a timeline, as tight as you can get it, where he was and who he was with and who was around. She was not as concerned with who done it per se, which I found unusual.
Yeah.
Wanted to know when, who, and where.
Okay.
And so, you know, we had already started the Cold Case Investigative Research Institute in 2004. So we started his case, I believe, 2010, I think.
Okay.
And then, I think 2013, I went to New York. 2015, I went to Vegas because again,
for Tupac's mom.
Yeah, for the case. Yeah.
Yeah, like this is so cool. Sorry, I just didn't know this about you. So I'm fangirling kind of.
So for everybody listening who does not know me, I am extraordinarily visual. I have to walk the scene to completely understand it. So yeah, you can tell me it's an intersection in Vegas, and maybe I'll kind of be able to put that together. But as far as the studio, as far as looking at New York in 94 and then Las Vegas in 96, it was imperative that I understood from the Lexor to that, to the boxing match, back. I wanted to understand all of it. And again, just to give people a little background about me, I think it's great to go to veteran law enforcement when you have questions. Sometimes it makes more sense to go to a criminal. So when I was in Vegas, I met with Frank Collada, who was a former mafia hitman, because everybody was saying this was a hit, this was a hit. It kind of felt like a hit, and it kind of didn't. So I wanted to hear from somebody that had done a hit. Is this what you're seeing? Am I off base? What can you tell me? And so Frank Collada was very clear with me that he thought this looked like somebody that knew him. Well, I thought that too. But again, the way I work, y'all, who cares what I think? But if I go to Barbara Butcher and I go to Frank Collada and I go to Dr. Dwayne Thompson and I go to all these people, and then I sit with Nancy Grace that I've known since I was in my 20s. And if everybody starts to tell me the same thing, I even got a chance with Melissa to sit with the prosecutor that prosecuted Bill Cosby. Well, she ain't an idiot. So if I have all of these people telling me it's Christopher Wolfenbarger, or I would look at this person, or I would try to connect Orlando Anderson broad, who knew him, who would be connected to him that might have information of who would want Tupac Shakur killed. Well, then comes along Keefe D. And of all the people in the music business, who does Keefe D say was behind it? Sean Paul.
Yeah.
Offered $1 million allegedly. But my thing is, okay, forget all that. Forget all of that. And Jarrett, here's the thing. I will ask you this as a former prosecutor. If you had a woman that told all her girlfriends and her preacher that if anything happened to her, Fred did it, the minute she winds up murdered, who do you look at?
I'm going to look very hard at Fred. You know, people, and I've had that. You've had that. It's like people will tell you.
Okay. Tupac said, Diddy set me up. Tupac said he did it.
Wait, when did Tupac say that?
Oh, more than one interview. He in Vibe magazine, he even said, I have proof.
For the New York shooting, I thought, right? He
after
said
the
that?
first shooting,
okay,
yes.
Okay.
But I'm saying if he's
I knew that.
What are the odds they're going to finish the job? Especially when somebody's saying Puffy's offered $1 million. So what I'm saying is these aren't conspiracy theories. You don't have to believe me. You don't have to believe Frank Collada. Believe Tupac Shakur.
Yeah. Well, you know what you said, and you probably don't even remember that you said it, but you said, and it gave me chills, where it's like, if you are sitting around a table with everybody, you're meeting up with whoever, and there's a hit going down, but you don't know who the hit is for, or who the target is. No. You're like, well, honey, you're the target. I'm sorry, it's not funny, but I mean,
this is that's right.
Yep.
He said, if you're at a table and you don't know who the mark is, you're the mark. Tupac said nobody at the studio would look him in the eye. They wouldn't look at him. Well, he was the mark.
Yeah. He was a dead man. They knew it.
Do you have any information about Eric Zip Martin, who was at the party when Diddy said anything about, I mean, he's dead now. So it's like, and so is Orlando Anderson. So is, what's his face? I forget his name in the back of the car. I mean, everybody's dead.
Right. So, but again,
except
the people
Keefe.
that are,
yeah, exactly.
Snoop is not dead. Keefe's not dead. Suge Knight's not dead. These people should be re-interviewed now that he's been denied bond twice. They're safe now. Everybody's under a microscope. He can't send a bodyguard to do nothing. He can't put anybody under some kind of intimidation because there's going to be charges flying all over the place. Now's the safest time to come forward.
Did you see the very suspicious
and Cheryl,
timing?
don't you think? Have you found?
Sorry. Did you see the very suspicious timing of Snoop Dogg's criminal records being sealed from the 90s? That happened today.
Yes.
Today. I mean, that is suspect timing.
And Tupac's going to be in court tomorrow.
Keep ED. Yeah, keep ED.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah, I'm like, that would be amazing. If you think he's still alive, but
Tupac, I'm
But
insane.
Cheryl, don't you think, have you found, and when you said they need to be re-interviewed, and somebody that may not have done this could be watching and think, well, what does that mean? I mean, basically, I've had cases that I was handed that were unsolved, not necessarily cold, but heading that way. And the first thing when you meet with the investigators is get everybody re-interviewed. At a minimum, see if they're sticking to their story, see if there's anything new that's come to light. And inevitably, that's when your case blows open.
Boom. And Jared, what do you love more than an ex-wife? Nothing. Right? She's
I
going
wouldn't know.
to love it, right?
You're right. You're right. An ex-wife, or one of the things that we talked about too is time. Time changes people.
Yeah. Yes. I was just going to say that. So for all of these people, their relationship with Combs has changed. He's not a power player right now. He can't pay.
Right.
He can't even get him on the phone.
Mm.
So they're scrambling, right? He can't do them any favors. He can't protect them. He can't get them out of the country, nothing. So this is the time, not just the relationship, but like you're saying, enough time has passed. If you were afraid of somebody when you're 17, you're now 42. You're not afraid anymore. And now is the time.
There was a drug operation going on here in Keefe D's world. Once you build enough cases against the people around him, for example, or you bring pressure on other witnesses and say, like, I had a case that one of the things that broke it open was this was a felon. He's found with 2 handguns. He's looking at 25 years in prison. Finally, you're going to tell us what happened in this shooting. And he did. That was his motivation. So as time passes, you can build collateral cases against witnesses. That is a big help too.
A great help. Excellent point. And again, if, Combs is going to court tomorrow, you're going to see, I think, some people that maybe are not there. Right. So again, in my world, look at who has not come out and made a statement. That is just as damning to me. Right. So,
yeah.
One thing I thought was odd in Diddy's indictment, one of the things, and Lauren and I have talked about, no one is named in that indictment in the organization. It's Puff Daddy and the name of the organizations and no soldiers listed. And I said to Lauren, to me, that suggests those folks are talking. That many in his organization are providing information. They're not identified. Their roles aren't set forth. I mean, would you agree?
Oh my God. Let me tell y'all something. There's no question what has happened here. And that's why I'm telling you, they're not going to make a statement because they already have. When the FBI, along with the U.S. attorney, knocks on your door, they are not fishing. They already know.
Right.
So they sit you down and go, hey, Jared, we know about the Bahamas. We know about Argentina. We know about Italy. And they're going to put these little DVDs on the table to show they've got you under surveillance. Then they're going to tell you about the phone calls. Then they're going to tell you about the 17 phones you have that you didn't even know anybody knew about. They're not asking you any questions. They're literally telling you, we got you.
Right. They've asked all the questions and got the answers already.
And I've been wondering about, what type of evidence, I guess, is going to come into this trial. What do they have that is tangible, that is substantial? Let's say besides the 3 defaced AR-15s, which is clearly an automatic prison sentence. That's super easy. And not to sound like a conspiracy theorist here, but a few things I've been thinking about is there could be some really powerful people involved in all of this that are connected to the government, let's say. So what are the chances here that that
Well,
maybe they have to derail the operation a bit. I'm just wondering, like, who, as this as more comes out, what's going to happen? Who's going to be a part of this?
well, Lauren, let's talk about what we already know. We know there's videotapes.
Yeah.
We know it. We know there's text messages. We know there's photographs. How many interviews have come out? The one with Mike Tyson, where it looks like he touches his butt and Mike has to completely move on the sofa.
See, those videos, though, I'm kind of getting sick of those a
Right,
little bit because I
right.
feel like anything can be taken out of context. And I,
Okay.
yeah, but you know what I'm saying?
Bad.
Right?
They
Yeah.
look bad. And I'm
No,
just,
they all look bad.
there's two, there's
But-
three. We've got somebody like Ashton
Well,
Kutcher.
remember too, there's 90. There's 90 cell phones that have been taken in this investigation.
That's
And
right.
cell phones are such a wealth of information. You'll know where they were, when they were, what they were saying. You got pictures, you got video. I mean, one phone's enough to burn you. 90?
That's right.
Yeah.
Jared,
Yeah.
gone from 11 victims to 120.
I mean,
Just,
Yeah, I mean, he's done. He's done. Now it's a matter of who he's taken down with him.
yep. And I'm telling you, everybody knows the deal. The first one that talks gets the deal.
yeah, right. I
Yep.
mean, and I've been going back and forth about this because I don't care what happens to Diddy. I think he's super guilty. I think that he's a horrible person. However, I felt like the law firm, the Busby law firm, was really using that as PR in a way, because I wasn't sure. And Jarrett, I don't know if I'm overthinking this, but how responsible is it to talk about allegations and a 9-year-old? I mean, involving a minor, when he hasn't been convicted yet. Clearly, he hasn't gone to trial yet, and these are two separate things. There's civil cases and federal. But is that fair? He's being tried by the media, and again, I don't give a crap about him. He could slip on the baby oil and go to trial. Yeah. What?
Well, listen, if you're saying it, if you're saying that about a 9-year-old, for example, like Busby and those folks were saying, they better have the goods. And I'm betting they do. I mean, it's a pretty big, it's a far bridge. But if first of all, he's in the civil world, he's not in the criminal world. So if he's filing a lawsuit, it's his position. Diddy's liable. Okay. And I would imagine anybody who makes a claim that someone was there's what he's accused of doing. And then when you add minor children into the mix, I mean, it takes it to an entirely different level, not to negate what he did to adults. But I would assume and hope that that attorney has significant information in support of that claim.
I hope so, because I noticed, I mean, on one of the lawsuits from a few weeks ago, I'm blanking on her name. It was Adria English. On her lawsuit, she had the wrong picture of a woman that she said was Diddy's Ghislaine. And she said, oh, it's this woman, Tamika Thomas. So I'm going up and I'm looking up Tamika Thomas, totally different woman. And then the Tamika Thomas that actually worked with Diddy puts out this Instagram post, and she's like, yeah, this isn't me. I don't really know what's going on, but that's not me. And this girl needs to, back up a little bit. So, and then you saw the other woman who allegedly bribed her boyfriend to corroborate her story. So I'm like, okay, guys, Diddy is most likely guilty here, but let's start vetting this a little bit better, because we don't want to give him his defense on a silver platter and say, yes, everybody wants your money. This is so obvious now, right? Like, I feel like it's getting a little bit out of hand, but that's just me.
Well, and I think you're right, and that may be true in some of the cases. Like I said, Sheryl mentioned the Cosby case. I had the opportunity to work with some of the victims in that case and met some of those folks along as that case moved through the prosecution process in Pennsylvania. There were levels of accusations that were made against Bill Cosby. But in that case, for example, there were literally a parade of accusers that were marching in and out of his criminal trial with Andrea Constead every day. So I don't know if the entire list of victims for P. Diddy are legitimate, but I would imagine, and I do know, though, some have already made payments to the Busby firm, and certain stars have made payments to the Busby firm to stay off his hit list that's coming out. So there's plenty of fire here, I think.
Listen, one of the attorneys came out and said they have received over 12,000 calls. Have y'all heard that?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy.
If half are not true, you're still talking about 6,000. Like, that's a number that is unbelievable to me. All people are not lying. By now, they've got a list of questions. They are vetting them. They're looking for these words. That's one, that's one, that's one, right? So it's already come out what type of drugs were being, served at the house. Well, that's something most people had never heard of, right? So, okay, he's got this thing that's going to knock you out. When you wake up, you're not going to have a memory. And Lauren, I agree with you. Some of those videos aren't enough already, but here's the deal. There's one where Diddy's at an auction. Have you seen this one?
No.
Refresh my memory. I've seen a lot.
Up at the stage and they're auctioning off some things. Diddy goes up, takes the microphone from the man and says, I want to give something. And it's one of three things. You can either have a weekend at my house and, the staff will stay right there on the beach. You can do a recording session with me, or I'll make a record for you or your kid. Or you can party with me in New York City on Saturday, and I promise you won't wake up till Wednesday.
Yeah, that's bad. That is bad. No, that's really bad. That's bad. Agreed.
Again, if you're looking at somebody like, our friend Peter Hyatt, Peter might go, that might be a little bit of a confession. Like, where did he just pull that up from Saturday to Wednesday? Because he gave you the cocktail they're saying he did, which was a horse tranquilizer, that could knock you out for 3 or 4 days.
And those statements are admissible. Like, I'd use that against him. If he takes a trial, that thing's coming in. I'd find every stupid thing he said that coincides with our theory and just keep playing it till they're sick of it. I mean, I would just keep going.
You mean like me? Yeah.
For the witnesses, when you've got somebody like Ashton Kutcher saying, I went to the party, but I can't tell this.
Right.
This part, can't tell that. Really? Now I'm going to subpoena you. Now tell me what you couldn't tell on whatever talk show that was. Because had a fantastic night in New York City with one Miss Lauren Conlon. I will tell you every single thing that happened. Nothing is a secret. I'm not going to sit here and go, Jared, call me later and I'll tell you. No. That table and dance. Like, no, I'm just kidding.
I mean, we were close. We were very close. But Sheryl, I want to just ask you, just to close off the Tupac Diddy thing. When the Clark County Sheriff's Office says Diddy's not a suspect, never been a suspect, is that because the investigation's ongoing or because they think he's actually not a suspect?
I'm going to tell you a true story. Kathy Scott was the first reporter on scene when he was shot in Las Vegas.
Kathy Scott. Okay.
She wrote a book about it. And then she wrote another bestseller. Both were New York Times bestsellers about Biggie and his mother. She was the first person. She saw the car. She has interviewed thousands of people. She is the leading expert on the murder of Tupac Shakur and Biggie.
Wow.
When her source, who was in law enforcement, called her, he did not know how to pronounce the name Tupac Shakur.
Yeah.
Now, let me tell you what that tells me. They didn't know who he was. They didn't know his associations with other people.
Okay.
So they sure Lord didn't in 94. So I do not believe it was investigated the way that it should be. And all I am saying is right now today, whether it's Keefy D or Suge Knight or Snoop, they need to be re-interviewed, because I think if Tupac told anybody, he would have told Snoop. Then ask him.
That's interesting.
If you murdered this man and you never got your $1 million, why didn't you retaliate? Like, what's up? Make this make sense to me.
Well, they're blaming the money thing, that Eric Zip Martin got the money and that he never, that's easy because he's dead, obviously. So like, that's a really good excuse.
But again, he has stayed alive. He has stayed unharmed. In that type of underworld, he wouldn't have. I still get my money. I don't care what middleman. That middleman should have been done with immediately too. in that world. So if you offered $1 million and the killer didn't get that money, they don't just go, oh, well, I tried. No.
Yeah. Right. Right. Oh,
And let me go back. In like 94, they're calling that a snatch and grab. Y'all, snatch and grab is like urinating in public. There ain't but two things. Were you in public? Were you urinating?
yeah.
Right.
A snatch and grab is you go into a store, you grab 5 pair of jeans and you run. Or you see a woman, you grab her purse and you keep running. That is a snatch and grab. What happened to Tupac Shakur? He was shot multiple times. By his own testimony, they then kicked him.
He was executed.
But
Yeah.
I'm saying 94.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And grab.
Oh, you're talking
Well,
about the first one. Yeah, right,
Herman-
right.
In New York
He was
City,
targeted.
Yeah.
Permit correctly.
Totally.
They didn't investigate it correctly. That's where I'm at. It wasn't a snatch and grab. It was attempted murder.
There's a chance that, we know he was named over 70 times in an old document that was supposed to be part of KPD's proffer agreement. Yeah, so we know that. So he very well could be an active suspect, but they just don't need to tell us right now. And my God, imagine something gets released, some kind of filing with tomorrow or after he goes to court with, Diddy's involvement or alleged involvement. I mean, the public, the media is going to go crazy. Sorry, I'm slinking down on my stupid yoga blocks. My God, I'm shrinking here.
They were inventing a new workout.
Trust me, my butt is so sore, but not from a workout. It's from these pinchy corners right now. So not in a good way. I'm very sorry. But Sheryl, this has been incredibly fascinating. Just to wrap things up a little bit, where do you see the two? Diddy is one thing. We've discussed that. Where do you see the Keefe D trial going? It was supposed to be November 2024. Now it's March of 2025. Do you see that happening, or do you see it being pushed off, or what?
You know what? If I was representing him, I'm going to need a little more time because I wouldn't wait right here.
Okay.
Jarrett?
I agree. I think there's some moving parts here that are developing as we speak, and any defense lawyer and the prosecution, they're going to say we need a little time here. They'll agree with the defense. They won't ask for it themselves, but there's a lot of stuff going on in their world.
Yep.
Yeah, and KPD's not getting bail. I mean, there's no way, guys, right? He's going to keep asking.
Neither is Diddy.
Wait, some people think that so there's a new judge, and some people think that he's going to post bail and it's going to be okay. And I'm like, what? I don't think so. Why would they think that?
I don't see it happening.
Right.
I'm shocked and disappointed. He should not.
No, they keep coming back to the whole, oh, he surrendered. He flew to New York. It's like, and who cares? What that makes him like not he's going to be texting his people and witness tamper. I think that's horrible.
That's the biggest thing. That's the problem. When he knew they were coming, he was tampering with witnesses. He's got access to planes. He's got a lot of money. Believe me, he's not getting out. And
he's a sexual predator. And Lauren, I say it all the time. There's no such thing as a part-time rapist.
That's interesting. Wow. Like once a rapist, always a rapist. They're not going to stop type of thing.
No, it's what they do all the time. It's not part-time.
Yeah.
I mean, I do a podcast part-time.
Right.
They are full-time. It's what they think about. It's what they plan. They plot, they scheme, they hunt, they pick out, they assault. It's what they do all the time.
So
all that together. Think about the nature of his crime, the risk of flight, the jury intimidation, the access to monies, the
Listen,
scope.
I'm with you.
He's done. I'm just saying all those things. Yeah. I don't see him getting out.
But guys, why are we supposed to believe that he's not talking in prison? He has access to phones. He has access to people. He's a powerful guy. So we're supposed to believe that he is completely cut off from his associates, and maybe he's got to be getting some messages out. Don't you agree?
He may, but it's all recorded now. And he didn't have time to come up with a code. And if he did, it's going to be real clear. Hey, Lauren, did you get the tomatoes? Did you get the tomatoes I sent? They were red tomatoes. I mean,
Some of that stuff, and
Tomato.
Cheryl, you would agree, taking apart those codes is so much fun too. I mean,
But-
believe me, he's not.
Yeah.
His movement and his ability to communicate is severely limited to someone
Yeah.
who is so used to having access to unfettered resources and 90 phones. Like, this is a guy who's got a very, very small window to speak. He's under supervision and people are watching for what he says. So
Hey,
Yeah.
well,
it's not.
who the hell's taking his call?
Listen,
I know.
so I interviewed John Sally, the NBA legend, last week, and I was horrified. I put out a little clip on social media, but John Sally gave me like a scroll of all the good things Diddy did, and I'm like, I don't give a shit. I'm so sorry to tell you that, like, I don't care. That can be true, and this can be true. He was completely deflecting, saying that Diddy was targeted because he's so powerful, and I'm like, John Sally, you've been at a Diddy party. I mean, this is so obvious to me right now.
It would be great if we didn't have the video of him whooping Cassie severely. We
Mhm.
know what he's capable of. And
Yes.
that in a place he knew he was being videotaped.
Right,
All
in
I'm
a
telling
hallway.
you is some of those folks that you've seen him with, you know, the actors, the singers, the athletes, they ain't taking his call, honey.
Yeah, I would hope not, but I mean, I guess we'll see. I have to say, like, I'm nervous, you guys. I am nervous, and I think it's just the conspiracy theorist in me a little bit, just because I do feel like the entertainment industry is connected to Washington, D.C., Hollywood, D.C. It's always been a
Are they?
thing. Yeah. Oh, I'm like, wait, shut up. I'm like, really? But like, the music industry is something that I am not as familiar with. However, what we're learning as we sift through Diddy's past is that every single person, from Oprah to Obama to LeBron James, they all have a connection. What does this mean? What is going to happen? So I get anxiety over it.
I'm looking forward to it. I have faith in the system.
Take a breath. I think that this case is, and I like this U.S. attorney in New York.
Yep.
Yeah. Jared, is there like a hurricane where you are? I mean, you're lagging, you're blurring. I don't even know what's going on. You're pixelated.
It's definitely interfering with our internet tonight.
Yeah, something's going on with you. I'm like, what? So you're like in and out, and then I feel like you are like 1 minute behind us or something. I've just noticed that. I'm like, but anyway, Sheryl, we've taken up enough of your time. There was a request in the chat for this stream to never end. And then I also wanted to pin just something before. Everybody loves Sheryl. Everybody should follow her if they don't already. And people are just learning about Jarrett, like Kevin saying Jarrett's pretty badass. I just looked him up and he apparently caught a serial killer. Yes, he did. And we will be doing an episode.
Kevin, thanks. Thank you for putting in the work, Kevin.
And then Trial Junkie said that if she was a criminal and saw Jarrett on the other side of the table, they would just confess right away.
Oh, good. Not all
I
of
don't
them
know
did.
what that means about you, Jarrett, but what? What does that mean? That you're just intimidating? I don't know. Or I don't know. Maybe she just wants to like make you happy. Who knows? But just kidding.
A lot of criminals did not. A lot of them did not plead guilty. I could tell you that.
Oh well, yeah. Well, yes. Anyone who doesn't follow Sheryl, you are missing out. She truly is one of the most incredible people inside and out. And one last thing I'll say is, Sheryl, when all of the media was printing your interview with Laura, they were printing your words verbatim, and it was just so funny. I'm reading it and I'm like, God, this is so Sheryl. And you were like, you ain't it. Like, you were just there printing it like how you speak, and I'm like, this is so good.
That is hilarious. Yes.
Like, you ain't it, honey. I don't even know what they said, but it was so good.
You know, Nancy Grace and I have known each other since we were in our 20s. And sometimes if she's on with me, she can't help herself. She'll have to correct me. She'll be like, that's a dangling participle. That's a double negative. And I'm like,
So funny. I mean, I think I just enjoy it so much that I never want to correct you ever, 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 because it's so entertaining. I love
I appreciate it. But let me tell y'all, if you don't know about Lauren, she is so, I use this word all the time, but she is so vivacious and
Oh.
energetic and so fun. She don't get tired, y'all. I mean, we went out in New York. Barbara Butcher and I were sitting there with Walt. We had no idea. We had been in that place, 4 hours?
Like 4.5 hours.
Closing, y'all. And I was
Yep.
like, just had the time of my life. I had no idea. And it's
So
just
much fun.
just
Yep. That's when I was supposed to be home for my babysitter. I told her I'd be home at 10. We're sitting at the table. I hadn't checked my phone in hours, but I'm like, it must be 8:30 or something. And I look at my phone. Babysitter called, texted, because it was 10:35 and I was already 35 minutes late. Not even, and I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, what is going on? What have I done? What have I done? I'm actually having dinner with Barbara tomorrow night, so we're gonna miss you, Sheryl. But yeah. Yeah, it was so fun. And then the next day we had a wedding. We had Lisa Ribicoff's wedding, and I was crazy at the wedding, but then I was calm after a while.
I'll tell you, we had such a good time, and Laura Ingle was there. So again,
had so much fun.
The two of y'all are part of my Zone 7, which I appreciate. But I've worked cases with both of you, and I appreciate y'all's intellect and y'all's way of looking at cases and just how helpful y'all are. Y'all have never hesitated to help, ever.
No, and hope to do many more with you, Sheryl.
Right on.
I do. Like I said, I want to keep learning. So, and I learn from Jarrett every day, and his insight is also so incredibly helpful for me. And both of you are, you're gentle with a rookie like me. You guys are not, you're not, I don't know. You never make me feel stupid. So
we learn from you.
That's right.
Well, that's very kind. But I think that when it comes to crime scenes and the law, I mean, I need a lot of work, let's be honest. But yeah, I'm getting there. God, let's talk this time next year. Okay. And I'll probably have like 4 cases under my belt that no.
Yes.
But anyway, thank you so much, Sheryl. We loved having you. And guys, sorry, we should probably end the stream because my butt is asleep. So, yeah, all right. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Sheryl. Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you again. See you later.
Happening. You're trying to figure out ultimately what is.
It's still a mystery as to why it took them